Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us as we talk all things faith, family, and fitness. A special thanks to Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency for their support of Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community one family at a time. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. Hey, this is Merrill Hutchinson for Rock Solid Families, and I'm here with my lovely wife. Hi, lovely wife. You gonna name yourself or not?
Well, I thought maybe you would say my name.
Okay. I will say my lovely wife, Miss Linda. How are you, Linda?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good. I am good. So we have a interesting, good show today. One that we would probably like to never ever have to talk about, but life is what it is, and so we're going to have to talk about it. So, you want to say what our topic is, or do you want me to go ahead and release the beast?
Well, we have kind of touched on this topic before, but I think it definitely needs to be revisited on a regular basis, and that is the whole talking about depression, or maybe not even just full-blown depression, but maybe just a short bout of the blues or that dark season where you just feel like you're in that funk. We've got a lot of people that have been coming through the door in the last 4 to 6 weeks saying, I'm just in a funk. I don't even know why. Yeah. So, all of us probably have some kind of familiarity with that.
Yeah, that is for sure. And I think I joke on here quite a bit about hating winter and just being in that season of the blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of truth to what happens during this winter season. And it's, these are not new terms. I mean, cabin fever and the darkness of winter and the sad or the dark season, these are not new terms. They've been around for years, maybe hundreds of years. And so we now have science to back a lot of this up. So we're going to just touch on that a little bit when we get rolling in the show. But part of our deal here, obviously, with Rock Solid Radio is to not just dwell in the idea that I'm having a terrible day and everything. Is that Eeyore?
Yeah.
It's another day, blah, blah, blah. But to actually move through that and to make something better out of it. Because we can get fixated, and the next thing you know, we pile day after day and month after month, and then year after year, and we wonder why we've got a dark life. So
this isn't. We're not going to focus on the darkness. We're gonna work on hope. We're going to talk about hope today.
So you know what? We better be hopeful that we still have sponsors from show to show. So let's cover some of our sponsors. We want to first thank Mansfield Insurance Agency for coming behind and alongside of Rock Solid Radio and helping us to do what we do here. Mansfield Insurance Agency began in 1981 by Jim Mansfield and is dedicated to serving individuals and businesses in Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So if you have an insurance need, call Mansfield Insurance Agency at 800-230-3927.
Yeah, we also want to thank Maxwell Construction. It was founded in 1988 by John Maxwell, and since that time, Maxwell Construction has grown and expanded to become one of the most recognized commercial construction companies in the tri-state. What separates Maxwell apart from their competition is their emphasis on being service-oriented to help meet the individual needs of their customers. So whether it's a school, a hospital, restaurant, apartment, or retail center, Maxwell Construction is able to meet your needs. So call them today at 812-537-2200. All
right, good job. So let's talk about some really cool things that we have coming up with Rock Solid Families. One of the big things we have coming up that's actually starting this week. I believe it's
tomorrow.
Tuesday, as we had.
Depending on when you're listening to this, obviously.
Yes. So we are putting on a program called Families Rock. And this was a program that we were basically received a grant through the Rising Sun Foundation. And so we're able to go out and to reach into the schools and to get good messages of just helping families and serving families. And so we have, I'll have you, Hun, go through the dates on that, but we have some really great topics that we're going to cover in these. and here are the dates.
Sure. So, and depending on when you're listening to this, obviously, we're talking about February and March of 2020. And we know that our podcasts have a shelf life and people listen to them a lot later. And some people, Hunt, are listening from all over the country, even the world.
You say world.
World,
yeah,
we do. We have several countries.
The whole wide world.
And so, oh gosh, that sounded awful. But if you are in Southeast Indiana or Southwest Ohio or Northern Kentucky, we are going to be at Batesville Intermediate School in Batesville, Indiana on Tuesday, February 25th. And we're going to be talking about technology and parenting in a tech-heavy world. March 3rd, we're going to be talking about authority in the home and who's the boss. And then March 10th, we're going to be in healthy relationships and healthy boundaries for our families. And then March 16th, which is actually a Monday, the other ones are Tuesdays, you're going to be really focusing on when school is tough, either academically or behaviorally with our kids. So again, these are all in February, March of 2020. And if you live in the Southeast Indiana area, we'd love for you to come and join us at Batesville Intermediate School in Batesville, Indiana.
All right. Very good. So let's get into the topic here of talking about just the season of darkness, all right? So I came across something that I thought was really cool, really interesting, just because, 20 or so years ago, you just didn't have this kind of data that comes through. But now, due to the internet, we do have data that comes through. And this is called the Google Misery Index.
That's crazy.
And this was data that was based off of what kind of searches people were doing throughout the year, like what topics people were searching. And so specifically, there's a whole thing about the Misery Index, which basically takes in three different components, being depressed, anxious, or stressed. So when people are Googling those types of topics, and it is really interesting. It's more confirming rather than like new information. And any of us who work in this business and actually maybe deal with some anxiety or depression, when I saw these numbers, I was not surprised in the least. In fact, if I would have said for myself how I roll through some of my anxiety and depression that I deal with, I would have my graph would have looked exactly like theirs. And so the interesting part of that is just people struggle with a lot of anxiety and depression in the mid to later fall, and it kind of goes to an all-time low right before we get to Thanksgiving. Which is very interesting. And so the research or the science on that, I'll say the theory, because we don't know for sure, but the theory is that, well, the days are getting darker, they're getting shorter, the cold weather setting in, and people are just sort of feeling that gloom, right? But then all of a sudden, there's a peak.
Yep.
You want to explain the peak?
The holidays. Yeah.
Thanksgiving,
Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Yeah. And so from Thanksgiving to Christmas, there's an actual peak. Where people's moods are actually not just elevated, but elevated to an all-time high.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Christmas Day is actually the brightest day of the year.
Even though it's one of the shortest days.
Even though it's, one of the shortest. So it has so much more to do with just kind of the celebration and the people around.
Jesus' birthday.
Jesus' birthday, that's right. Duh. Yeah. But then there's another interesting trend, and I think it's worth being aware of it. As we walk past the holiday season, we continue to be in a low, and then we hit this crazy low in the spring. And I'm very aware of this personally. And it's confusing because the days are getting longer. It's getting warmer out, and your mind is thinking, wow, spring is coming or summer's coming. But there is a period there where people struggle. They struggle in that transitional season. And so there's even talk about whether there actually is a season component to this, whether it's change in the moon seasons and all these different things. Again, these are theories, so we're not going to get into the exact why because nobody really knows.
Right.
But it's very interesting. And so the reason why we do this show now, the dark season, is because guess what? You're in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're in it. And, especially around here, the Southeast Indiana area, man, we can get a bunch of rainy, dark days that go on and on.
And actually, even we've only had our office open for 18 months. So we've had 2 seasons of February and we're soon going to be in March. And we have seen an uptick in our clients even.
Yeah.
February, which is one of the shortest months of the year, is one of our busiest months for new clients, people calling us and saying, I need help.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are in this funk and they don't know, so if hope is what you're looking for, how do you find it? Even when we're in these dark seasons, so often we lose hope and lose sight of what we have to live for. We lose hope. And so we feel that it's really important to have hope because it gives us purpose and a belief that there is something better ahead. That,
Yeah, when you're in the darkness of the gloom and doom sort of thing, as we talked about before, it can snowball on you. And whether it is a situational occurrence of, I'm just having a bad day, or maybe I just lost my job or whatever, but it's a situation, or it becomes a prolonged, much more chronic situation or problem, I should say. Either way, the reason or the way that we get out of there is to start to search for, where do I have hope?
Yeah.
And hope is that key. But the problem with just saying that is it just sounds like words. You've got to have hope.
Right.
You've got to have hope. And hope in and of itself is just a word.
Right.
So the question is, well, where do I get hope?
Yeah.
How do I get it? What is this thing called hope?
Yeah. And it's crazy, hon, that we had this topic scheduled a long time before we realized that our church is actually doing a whole series on hope the whole month of February. And so our amazing pastor did a great job just recently talking about when you have no hope, which I thought that was so interesting. And we don't know where you're listening from. Like we said, we have people in other states, other countries. But if you are in the Southwest Ohio area, Northern Kentucky, Southeast Indiana, and you don't have a church home, we'd love for you to be our guest at Whitewater Christian Church in Cleves, Ohio, because our pastor was talking about, this close cousin of hopelessness, David Vaughn, our senior pastor, and I agree with them. He called it bitterness. Think about it. If we harbor bitterness and unforgiveness, it can be poison. And we've talked about this on a previous show, the power of forgiveness. But I agree with David. He said you can't hold up the banner of victim and victory at the same time.
Right. Yeah, that's always a great point that we do talk about in here. And when you have a lot of bitterness in your life, or you just struggle with that idea of not being able to forgive, that unforgiveness, it starts to fade the whole concept of hope. So,
and I have had this recently, hon, with some clients that they don't want to give up their right to hold that grudge, or they're the victim of their circumstances. And man, Satan just loves that. Yeah. He loves to wrap us up in that chains of bitterness. And we just can't. Hebrews, 12:1 says, therefore, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sins that so easily entangles. And let's run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the perfecter of faith. And then he says in verse 15, see that no bitter root grows up. I mean, he's basically saying this is how we get tangled up in it.
Yeah. And then sometimes this starts so slow that it goes on for years and years. And as you said, we become entangled, and it becomes who we are. Yeah. I've used the phrase before, we have an opportunity to walk into our later senior years of life, either being angry old men or happy old men. Yeah. And that really comes down to where you're going to get your source of hope and what you've done with bitterness and unforgiveness. If you've held on to those things as if no, it's my right to be angry or bitter at this person for life. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But that's going to end up hurting you.
Yeah. And like you said before, hon, the word hope, I said, you just need to have hope. Well, that's just a word. And even we're going to give you some techniques and methods, but really all of that's going to leave us empty. All of those are just going to treat the symptoms. If we don't get down to the root and go down to really what is going to be the ultimate provider hope. And we believe as Christians, that's Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I mean, Romans 15:13, that scripture just kind of, for me, just brings it all together. And it's just, may the God of hope, listen to what I just said there. May the God of hope fill you with all of the joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope.
I love that.
And so the reason why this is important is because we put hope in very human, even materialistic things. You know, whether I hope I get a little bit more money in my paycheck, or I hope my kids behave better today, or I hope that the sun comes out today. And these are things that, you know, they can provide a moment of satisfaction.
Temporary.
But God is, one, he is eternal, but two, our life is eternal.
He's the
Whether
God
it's
hope.
going to be in heaven or hell, it's still eternal.
Yeah.
And so that whole idea that even though you may be in a dark or bad situation here and now, that there is something better.
Yep.
And that's what hope is. Like tomorrow or in the future, there is something better.
Yeah.
And that's hope right there.
Yeah.
And so God is hope.
Yeah, and it's the mindset to reset your mind. You know, as you said, you know, mind, body, and spirit. You say all the time about hitting a reset button. You can't separate the three, so you kind of create some action steps to move toward hope. First, you got to recognize the negative patterns. You got to recognize the behavior, and we've used this acronym before. HALT. You got to stop what you're doing if you find yourself hungry or angry or lonely or tired, and recognize that destructive pattern that you're on. So you got to first recognize it. Then what do you got to do?
Well, and again, I mean, I think that recognizing your behavior, but I want to add to that the pattern. Because within a moment, I might have a behavior, and HALT is really, that is in a moment kind of thing. These are different things like hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Those are kind of in the moment. But if those become a pattern, if those are things that continue on, those are the things that lead us to this thing that we call depression. And so the pattern is important. Everybody has a bad moment or a bad day.
Good point.
But it is the pattern we want to look for. And so once we recognize that pattern, and so what defines a pattern? You know, when we actually start to have accumulations of bad days, so when you start to pile on 2 and 3 days where you're like, man, I've been in a funk, and you, Linda, you will hear me say that sometimes, like, man, I've been in a funk for the last few days.
But you're not getting out of bed, you're not showering, you skipping work. I mean,
no, I'm not doing that.
No. I'm just saying.
I haven't showered in a month. No.
Good thing it's radio. Yeah. So, but no, I mean, we've had clients who that was their kind of indicator that they're in a dark season, that they need to get some help because they're skipping work, they're canceling appointments, they're not bathing, they're not taking care of themselves, they're not eating. Those are all signs of a behavior that's not good.
Yeah, and so that's the recognition of that. You have to recognize it, and we're going to talk a little bit before about your loved ones being involved and how they can help you with that, all right? But once you recognize it, this is just the hard part, but it's the part that starts to kind of jump into some action. You have to own it.
Right.
You have to say, you know what, as I've said to you, I'm in a funk. Okay, that's the recognition. But what am I going to do about it? And so whether we jump into some different things that we're going to talk about here, or whether I just sit on it. Sitting on it does nothing to change it. All right. It does nothing to open the window back up so I can see that hope that's out there.
Yeah. And
so we have to own it.
Yeah. And you can't keep pointing fingers. It can't be everybody else's problem. Or if you're finding yourself complaining and whining about everyone else doing wrong to you, then the pattern is that you're not owning it.
Right.
It's not your problem. So we got to treat the behavior. Again, these are symptoms, right? But we know that we got to start getting some different patterns, some different habits that will help us get out of this funk.
Yeah. You know, what would keep me from owning my behavior is that I know that if I own it, I have to
do something.
Yeah, and work is what keeps us from this. So here are some things that we know. Through even science, through personal experience, we know help open up the window to hope again. All right, exercise.
Yeah, this one's yours.
For me, this is it. I mean, this is a medicine for me. I can be in that funk and literally, drop sweat for 30 minutes, and it's like, let's go. We're ready to roll. So it literally is that effective.
I don't like it, but I know I need it. I know it does help.
Absolutely. The next one is sleep. We did a talk on one of our shows about sleep, and man, the research on sleep is becoming stronger.
Yeah, I think we called it rest.
And stronger and stronger. stronger. Well, it's beyond rest.
I know, but I mean, I think that was in the one about rest.
Yeah. The idea with sleep is just that it is where your brain actually disposes of waste and refreshes itself and comes back with a new, stronger chemical balance rather than an imbalance. So sleep is critical. And if you're a person that you have struggle sleeping, it would be worth getting help for that. I mean, if you're one of these folks that have insomnia or you have sleep apnea or something along this line, doing something, getting some medical help for that will really
Some
pay
people do
dividends.
Melatonin or something.
Yeah.
Diet is so important. What you're eating, if you're just spiking that blood sugar and then you're crashing and burning, sometimes that can do some really funky things to you. So watch your eating habits, watch your diet. Are you feeding yourself with high fructose corn syrup? I can't even say that.
Said something else.
I
Corn
can't
what?
say that. A lot of carbs, are you eating protein? Are you eating late at night? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Important stuff there. I like to think about there are certain things that are just like one-off mood busters. Something
mood busters. What's that?
You've heard of a Ghostbuster?
Is that like Ghostbusters?
Right, this is a mood buster. I mean, there are certain things that we can do within a moment or within a short period of time that can actually reset a hard change in mood. Something like humor. We completely downplay the benefit and effectiveness of humor.
Yep, gotta laugh.
And learning to laugh at ourselves, learning to laugh with other people, not necessarily at other people, because that can also be
That's
very
a whole
jaded,
different show.
All right, but laughing with other people, doing projects. We see people who, when they're bored or when they lack focus to do something, that can put them in that depression. So, maybe it's time to start that project.
Yeah.
Vacation. Spring break, right? I mean, that can be a mood buster where all of a sudden you've been in that funk all of winter.
Yep.
And you're like, you know what? We're looking forward to it. We're headed down to Florida
Put it
or
on the
some
calendar.
sunshine place, and it changes that. This was classic in the Google Misery Index, celebrations, Christmas,
right,
birthdays. These are, one-off times that actually change the whole trend of how people are feeling.
Yeah.
How about this? How about just being in positive relationships?
Man.
Right? I mean,
you are who your friends are.
Yeah. I mean, if
you're around a bunch of Eeyores.
Right, and we talk about this in our marriages. If we come home every day and we dread coming home because there's going to be tension or battle, or just, it's not going to be a friendly place to be, that's depressing.
Yep.
And so having good relationships, if your relationships, especially those in your home, are not strong and positive, then do the work to get them there.
Yeah. Sunlight, seasonal affective disorder is a real thing. And so just the lack of sunlight sometimes can really hurt. So if you see that sun shining, which it is today while we're taping this, go out there and just soak in those rays.
Yeah, vitamin D.
Yeah. And as well as, therapy, if a licensed therapist, a pastor, a coach, come see us at Rock Solid Families. If you live near us, we would love to help walk alongside you and help you create a plan, a purpose, maybe look for a brighter future than what maybe you see right now.
Yeah. And I want to, move through that, because that therapy, oftentimes, the bottom line is we're trying to get this better, this depression better. And I think it does need to be stated. Depression is very treatable.
Yes.
Right? So there's hope in just that there is treatment.
Yeah.
Where a lot of diseases, there is not treatment.
Yeah.
Right? You get it and it's like, well, it's your death sentence. And depression it doesn't have to be.
No,
okay?
It does not.
And so medication can very much be part of that. And we've done shows on that. And we are not, at least at Rock Solid Families, we are not believers that you can just pray everything away. Prayer is huge. It's a big part of that hope component. But whether we have a genetic predisposition, whether we've had a traumatic event, like PTSD, we're not going to look at somebody and just say, well, just keep praying, and all of your chemistry will straighten right out.
Yeah, we don't do that for diabetics. We don't do that for high blood pressure. I mean, God uses doctors. He uses medication. So please don't think, we've had people that have come in and said, no, I'll never do medicine. And we don't prescribe medicine here, but we're not saying that we should take it completely out of the equation for every person.
Yeah.
And hon, all of these things, maybe we can't recognize in ourselves, but if you have a loved one that you see struggling with depression or anxiety, reach out to them.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what they're dealing with. You don't know what they've tried or if they've tried anything. If they feel like there's no answers, I would be slow to offer a fix,
I want to emphasize that too, because I think especially if you're one that doesn't deal with depression, the knee-jerk reaction is to offer quick fix.
Yeah.
You just need to.
Yeah, right.
And for somebody who's actually in that funk, that actually creates even a bigger sort of resistance and anger.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I'm broken.
I must be a loser.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah. Somehow you know better than me.
Yeah.
So be slow to offer these fix-it solutions. And as with anything, especially when we talk about raising kids, things have to be our own idea.
Right.
It has to come from within us in many, many cases for us to really for that to be effective for us.
Sure. And the levels of change, some of it is just becoming aware that you need to change. You got to do something different.
Yeah.
Ask them what you can do to help them, walk alongside them, just show them love, be gentle with them, let them know you have their back, but don't enable them. Don't let them wallow in it and just kind of allow to continue to do that, gently challenge them to get help, to maybe offer some, direction to get that help that they need.
Yeah. So I love the part where, is support, just like a parent, we're going to support our kids, but we're going to challenge our kids.
Sure.
And we have to have that challenge in there, especially if somebody has gone deep enough in that depression that they're having a hard time grabbing hold of the next step.
Yeah. So that's speaking of challenge, so we better get to our challenge, so first do a little valuation on how your mood has been, what's gone on, if there's any negative patterns, be quick to reach out for help, whether it's just a friend or a pastor or a counselor, that's why we're here. We have a lot of men and women who are walking through our door looking for some help, and some can't even put their finger on it. Like we said, they just say, I'm in a funk. And we have to kind of really break it down, like, where's that funk coming from?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important, too, that we've talked about all of those techniques, but we prefaced it and we want to post it with all of this is in prayer. It's all in faith.
Yep.
And one of the things that we want to, this is why it's important to have that relationship with Christ and with God all throughout.
Right.
Because we don't want to just go to him as a last resort.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's nothing else I can do. I guess
I'll pray.
It's like, well, how about like when we're just having one of those kind of not so good days? How about we pray then?
Right.
How about when we're having a great day that we pray then?
Absolutely.
So prayer is just part of it, and that's why you don't want to be a stranger to God when all of a sudden you knock on his door
when you need it,
you need him.
On your needs. Yeah. And this is so interesting. I really feel like we want to challenge everybody out there, and we actually were challenged at church, which is so cool that we're doing this show, that we have a responsibility to look around and to see who may need hope. We're working with our junior high teachers, junior high students right now on this very topic, and we're working on some role playing and see how they would respond. If a friend asks them a question like, why did God even make me? Or why am I here? We're not going to have like Post-it notes in our pocket or a pastor in our hand to help us. I mean, we got to be ready.
Pastor in our hand.
Well, I meant
that could be interesting.
Actually, I meant to say pastor in our pocket and note cards in our hand.
I can't wait to talk to David about that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. But we got to be ready. We got to be ready to have a reason for the hope that we have. I mean, 1 Peter 3:15 says, "Always be prepared to give a reason for the hope that you have."
Yeah, that's great stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so we are coming to the close of things, and I think it's just important, again, that we encourage all of you that there is hope, and do not allow this depression to continue to run through your life. There's lots of different avenues for help, and again, faith is the cornerstone or the foundation of all of that. So with that being said, we want to get ready to close everything out. We want to thank again our sponsors. We want to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency, as well as Maxwell Construction, for coming alongside of Rock Solid Radio and helping us do the things that we do here at Rock Solid Families, which, by the way, we continue to just see incredible work here. here. Not that we do the work, but God uses us. And as you said, this month of February has brought lots of numbers in, and it has a lot to do with God blessing, but also just the season we're in.
Right. Well, we know that He is the one that moves mountains. I mean, He's the hope that we have. He's the unshakable foundation that we want to build everything on. And so we know that changes lives. And so we thank you for listening, to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard on today's show, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency. If you have questions you'd like answered on our show, or you want to chime in on something you heard, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time.